Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour, armed with covert surveillance systems.
That's the subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, diamonds are a girl's best friend, but one fraudster comes up with a real gem for his claim.
They found a picture of his fiancée wearing a ring that looked remarkably the same as the ring that he had reported stolen whilst in Brazil.
A policyholder makes a Blue Peter attempt at his insurance claim.
When the box appeared, it was obvious. My 9-year-old child could have done a better job.
And IFED are out in force across the country, tackling suspected travel insurance fraudsters.
We're looking for the products that you reported stolen. Are they here?
For sun, sea and a bit of romance, you can't beat jetting off to an exotic location. Up to 250,000 Brits visit South America each year, but levels of crime are high in this part of the world, and if you get robbed while on holiday, it can put a real dampener on your trip. In this particular case, newly engaged couple David Hammond and his new fiancée headed to the bright lights of Rio, and they obviously wanted to bring the diamond sparkler with them.
Mr. Hammond claimed that whilst he was in Rio de Janeiro, on the last day of his holiday, he'd packed up all of his belongings. He said that he was keeping the ring for safekeeping. He didn't want his fiancée wearing it out in public, so he was keeping it safe in a bag that he had.
Bags packed, but keeping the ring and a valuable gold bracelet close to his chest, David Hammond decided to do a bit of sightseeing.
He went to the hippie fair, and whilst he was there looking around at the stalls, he felt something brush up against him, and it was only later on, whilst back at the hotel, he went to unpack one of his bags and realised that the engagement ring was actually stolen, along with the gold bracelet.
Thankfully, Mr. Hammond knew exactly what to do in a situation like this.
I mean, thefts do happen there. He actually went to the Brazilian police to get a crime report.
Armed with his crime report number, on his return to the UK, Mr. Hammond reported the theft to his insurer.
Now, the diamond engagement ring was a bespoke diamond ring that had been made in the Hatton Garden area, along with a gold bracelet. Quite high value. I mean, the diamond ring was around 18,000 and the gold bracelet was 3,000. Because of the value of this claim, in excess of £20,000, it was thoroughly investigated and close attention is paid to the details that he would have given surrounding the circumstances of the theft.
The insurer has many tricks up their sleeve to investigate a claim.
During investigations, investigators had trawled through social media and they'd found a picture of his fiancée wearing a ring that looked remarkably the same as the ring that he had reported as stolen whilst in Brazil.
The picture had been taken a couple of months after the Rio trip. Confused, the insurer approached David Hammond. Mr. Hammond, of course, had a simple explanation.
He said that it was a replica and paid sort of a low value amount for it in order to keep his fiancée happy whilst the claim was going through.
The investigators just weren't convinced by David Hammond's story, so they referred the case to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
He couldn't back up what he was saying, didn't have a receipt for the replica, couldn't say where he bought the replica from, had no other information to offer, couldn't actually give us the replica. You know, all those things lead to just lies, really. He admitted that it was fraudulent from the outset.
David Hammond pleaded guilty at the Old Bailey, where he received a 6-month suspended sentence and 200 hours of community service.
This type of opportunistic fraud we see day in, day out here in this unit. It is unusual in the fact that it's quite unique, a bespoke diamond ring, and because of that value it's going to be investigated thoroughly. I think when it comes to motivations for fraud, it's always down to one thing, and that's money and greed. Well, it's two things then, isn't it?
Coming up, a dog owner doubles her chances when her pet goes missing.
She miraculously mentioned a second Chihuahua who also happened to be called Bella.
And a group of fraudsters claiming for several laptops seem to be suffering from a case of amnesia.
He was staying in a bed and breakfast that night. He could not remember the name of the establishment, the address, or even the part of London where it was situated.
Mobile phones. They're not just an accessory, they're a necessity. But today, they're now more than just a phone. For some people, they're an alarm clock, their camera, even their travel agent or bank. And for many, they'd be lost without them.
An investment in a smartphone is £400 or £500, plus in many cases people will sign up to 2 or 3 years contract with their mobile phone provider, and that's a big commitment.
Andy Morris from Assurance Solutions has heard it all. He's come across many claimers who found themselves in deep water.
We had a customer who rang up who claimed that they'd lost a high-end smartphone. They'd said they were on a boat on a lake.
We went out on my boat and we were going around the bay. My mum keeps having something going on her phone. So I will chuck my SIM card in there, see if it solves it. And without realising or even thinking about it, I put my phone on the side of the boat. And then the boat went past, my boat rocked and the phone just slid straight off the side.
But just before the phone fell into the lake, the claimant had removed the SIM card from the device before it fell in to swim with the fishes.
But accidents do happen.
It's quite believable because a lot of our customers lose their phones or damage their phones, dropping them in the toilet or dropping them in a river or a lake or when they're in a boat.
Following the claim, the insurers went about their usual checks.
We then used our data analytics and looked at the call patterns and identified that the SIM card and that phone had been used after the claim had been logged to make telephone calls.
Or, to put it a bit more simply,
the phone was actually being used from the bottom of the lake.
By now, the insurer just wasn't convinced. Several calls later, they contacted the claimant once more to finally get to the bottom of their story.
I just got a couple of questions that I just need to ask. So, you've spoken to one of my colleagues yesterday, and she just questioned in regards to the phone being lost, and you stated that you didn't actually see the handset drop into the water. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so you're making the assumption that somebody could have picked the phone off?
Well, we don't. I'm not making assumptions to anything. All I know is we took the SIM card out, put the phone on the side of the boat. We were fiddling around my mother's phone. We turned back round and the phone was gone. It is possible that someone could have grabbed it or not. We don't know.
The insurer wasn't swayed and denied their claim. However, the stories and lengths people go to make an insurance claim for a lost phone don't end there.
We had a customer who was claiming for a high-end Samsung smartphone. This person had been dropping their friend at the airport when they actually lost their phone. They telephoned us to report a claim.
It wasn't long before their suspicions were raised.
On logging the claim, we'd asked the customer for proof of ownership, that actually they had the phone or a unique identification number that we call in the industry IMEI. The customer was unable to provide any of those bits of information.
The claimer seemed a little confused by the insurer's request.
The claimant initially challenged us and said they needed further clarification. So our agent, because of their training, offered a variety of ways for the customer to prove that they did own the phone.
The insurer asked if the claimant could provide any proof of purchase.
The customer said, absolutely, I will go and get you proof of purchase and I'll send something. We agreed to accept the original box that the phone came in that the customer offered.
But the insurer couldn't believe what landed on their desk.
When the box actually appeared, it was obvious. My 9-year-old child could have done a better job, but ultimately the customer had doctored and created the box.
And in true Blue Peter style, here's one we made earlier.
The serial numbers were wrong, the pictures were wrong, the barcodes were wrong. He quite clearly had had a good day on the clip art. In that example, despite the customer thinking so far out of the box he created one, the claim was declined because it was incorrect evidence.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
IFED combats all sorts of insurance fraud across the board, ranging from opportunistic jewellery thefts to crash for cash.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
Today, IFED are cracking down on suspected travel insurance fraud. People who have gone on holiday and falsely claimed for theft of luxury items such as clothes, jewellery and electronic goods. In total, 70 officers are working with the City of London Police up and down the country, investigating a series of claims ranging from £500 to £14,000. It's early in the morning. DC Andy Jackson and DC Kerry Huffington are heading towards the address of a suspected fraudster to carry out a raid for potential evidence.
This job today is one of about 21 jobs that's going to be actioned today.
The alleged fraudster has made a claim on her travel insurance for several luxury designer items.
What we'd like to do today is get to the address. We'd like to locate the female who's claimed on this policy. We're looking at arresting her and then conducting a premises search just to look for the items which she has reported lost or stolen. In front we've got a couple of officers assisting us. The value of the claim goes into probably about £2,000. Fraud is fraud, you know, whatever the figure is, it's irrelevant really. But let's go and see what happens when we knock on the door.
The officers arrive in the early hours of the morning, hoping to catch the suspect by surprise.
Good morning. Sorry, my name's DC Jackson from City Police. Is it right if we come in and I can explain what it is I'm doing here?
It may seem like a small case, but the officers treat all suspected fraud the same.
We're here because we suspect that you've made a fraudulent claim. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to be arresting you now on suspicion of fraud. Okay, we're going to take you down to a local police station and we're going to be interviewing you on this matter. But while we're here, we're going to search the premises because we're looking for the products that you reported stolen. We'll search every room, okay? But if you want to give us those items now, are they here?
The woman has denied that the goods are at the property, so IFED now have to carry out a search of the house. She's arrested by the local police and led away.
The local officers will be taking her back shortly to the station, where she will be interviewed on this matter later. She'll be given her opportunity to account for the validity of her claim regarding these items. This is a multi-occupancy house. She has one room in this house. We'll be searching that room to see if we can locate any of the items that we're after.
A thorough search of the suspect's room begins. The officers can't afford to miss anything in their pursuit of possible evidence and leave nothing unturned. They find a number of electrical goods that could prove to be important in the investigation.
We've seen some laptops. We'll have a look to see if we can find any of the other articles.
The officers delve a little further and come up with an interesting find.
Yeah, under the bed, just found a box containing a set of very similar in name to the item that we're looking for as one of the items reported in this claim.
DC Jackson and his team have finished their search and hope they've found the potential evidence they were looking for.
We've seized a number of items very similar to what it is that she's claimed for in her policy. Also in the bedroom was a box which had the same serial number matching that of the item that she's attempted to claim for. We're going to make our way now to custody and we'll be interviewing her very shortly. It's a small part of a big day. Travel insurance fraud, yeah, it's a big thing. It's something that needs to be looked at, and hopefully today, by what we've done here today and up and down the country, this might deter people from making fraudulent claims.
Later, IFED continue to target travel insurance fraud.
The items we're looking for are a telephone. You still have that?
Britain is a nation of animal lovers. With 17 million cat and dog owners in the UK, 15% of these owners have pet insurance. If one goes astray, it can be an emotional time for the owner. So when insurers get claims for lost pets, they have to tread carefully.
Bella, the Chihuahua, was a case of a young dog in the back garden with a policyholder inside that miraculously went missing.
This case initially caught the insurer's attention due to the amount of the claim.
When the claim came in, we saw that the purchase price was much higher than you'd expect for a Chihuahua. Bella, the Chihuahua, was insured for £1,000. The average purchase price for a pedigree dog in this day and age is around about £400. So for your Labradors, your Retrievers, Chihuahuas, yes, a little bit more, certainly not £1,000.
Despite the amount, on the face of it, it did seem like the claim was legit.
This was a textbook claim. The dog warden had been informed, the veterinary practices had been informed, the police had actually attended, but could find no evidence of theft, so they hadn't filed a report.
Things seemed to be going swimmingly, until the insurer asked for one final detail.
Bella, we knew she existed. You know, the veterinary records were there. The last thing that we wanted to check was back with the breeder. And so we asked the policyholder for the breeder's details, and the details they gave us, we couldn't find the breeder. No, the phone wasn't answered, and we struggled to track the breeder down.
The investigators were like a dog with a bone, and their perseverance paid off.
When we did track the breeder down, and we found her on social media, she actually wasn't the breeder of the puppy at all. She was a person that the policyholder had sold the puppy to. So she still owned the puppy, and she said that the person we had as a policyholder had actually bred the puppy.
Armed with this insight, the insurer approached the policyholder.
Upon questioning, she admitted that Bella the Chihuahua had been sold to her friends, and she then miraculously mentioned a second Chihuahua, who also happened to be called Bella, was the one that had gone missing. So quite bizarre.
But the policyholder's stories didn't stop there.
With Bella number 2, there were no veterinary records. There was no police report of the theft or the loss. There were no reporting to the local veterinary practices, the local dog warden, or the local animal rescue centres. We couldn't determine that Bella number 2 had actually ever existed.
The insurer put 2 and 2 together.
So at that point, we immediately suspected that the breeder, who was our policyholder, had the puppy, had Bella, sold her to her friend, and then she'd gone out and insured Bella herself, even though she didn't own her anymore, and then put in a fictitious claim for the loss and purchase price of Bella.
The insurer had had enough of the claimant and thought it was time to call her bluff.
We suggested we'd send loss adjusters round to see them, and miraculously, same day, the policyholder withdrew the claim.
The policyholder had, quite simply, been caught out.
With this type of case, once you spot the initial signs, the cases tend to unfold before you. People aren't that clever at covering their tracks. Social media is a godsend for the insurer who uses it properly.
The ascent of the laptop has enabled us to work on the move. Around 2/3 of us use a laptop, and the latest models can cost anything up to £3,000. But for some, they see this as a chance to use their contents insurance as a nice little earner. One group of crafty fraudsters got a little greedy when they submitted 3 claims over a 3-month period.
All 3 were claiming for laptops costing several £1,000s, and presented to us documentation in the form of purchase invoices, eBay documentation, bank statements.
But the documents supporting their claim set off alarm bells.
The fraudsters went to considerable lengths to falsify documents using the correct letterheads, using the correct fonts and terminology. However, when our investigators in the office and in the field examined these documents in more detail, we found significant discrepancies.
If you look closer, you can see the figures don't quite add up. These numpties clearly failed their maths test. They've forgotten to add on the pence. Right, let's do some basic maths. 5 plus 3 is 8. Oops, they've got that wrong. 4 plus 2 is 6. And not 0. Wrong again. But to be fair to them, they've got the total of the pounds right. Not convinced, the insurer interviewed all 3 claimants.
We found numerous discrepancies in their versions of events. One of the claimants claimed that he purchased a rail ticket on the day for a return to London from Coventry for £41. Our inquiries showed that actually a cash ticket bought on the day would cost £138.
One claimant seemed to suffer a severe case of memory loss about the particular details of his visit to his sister.
He could not even remember where she lived, her address, or even the part of London where she resided. He went on to state that he was staying in a bed and breakfast that night. Again, he could not remember the name of the establishment, the address, or even the part of London where it was situated.
The insurer wasn't having any of it and thought it was time for their investigator to pay one of these fraudsters a visit.
When our claims inspector arrived at the address, he found the property to be unfurnished. Mr. Decory claimed he was still living there, but there was not even a chair for our inspector to sit on, and he had to take a statement while sat on the floor.
But then came the real gaffe made by the scammers.
The same address was used by one of the other claimants, purporting to be his mother's address, and claimed she had lived there since 1999. Unbeknown to him, our claims inspector had been at the same address 1 week before, where he'd had to sit on the floor.
For the investigator, this was more than just a coincidence, but a serious slip-up by the fraudsters.
1 or 2 discrepancies in a case would be understandable. However, when we encountered more than a dozen discrepancies and inconsistencies, along with significantly falsified documentation, it led us to only one conclusion, and that was that this was a serious attempt to defraud the insurance company.
However, one of the swindlers seemed to be getting cold feet and wanted to withdraw his claim.
Shortly afterwards, we received a text message from Mr. Seizures saying miraculously he had found his laptop and now wished to withdraw his claim. However, he had already submitted false documentation, false bank statements and a false invoice from Apple.
Regardless, Direct Line passed all 3 claims on to the police. In November 2013, all 3 were given 12-month community sentences and ordered to carry out 150 hours of unpaid work.
Claims of this nature are becoming more prevalent, and what we find is that as technology changes and new products and specifications are introduced, people use an opportunity of a false insurance claim to upgrade their equipment.
Today, IFED are knocking on the doors of multiple addresses, targeting suspected travel insurance fraud. This is part of IFED's clampdown, with zero tolerance of fraud, no matter what the claim.
We see some laptops. We'll have a look to see if we can find any of the other articles.
It's believed that over 7,000 travel insurance claims a year are fraudulent. Even though the individual claims may be small, it's the sheer quantity that's causing the travel insurance industry a real headache, to the tune of £7.5 million a year. IFED are targeting all suspected fraudulent claims from £500 upwards. One travel insurer is Seizures, who has come across cases where people have taken it to the extremes.
We always see customers claiming for designer clothing such as Prada, Louis Vuitton or Armani. They don't seem to have clothing from high street brands.
But insurers have seen a dramatic increase in the number of medical claims on travel insurance.
Customers will travel on holiday and then claim for cosmetic surgery procedures and try to disguise those as medical emergencies. We've recently had a case where a gentleman suggested he was involved in a road traffic accident, but the only injuries that he sustained was to his nose. When we completed the on-the-ground inquiries at the clinic, it then transpired that the customer had in fact had a pre-planned nose job.
And don't assume that because it happened abroad, that it's out of sight, out of mind for the insurer.
Fraudsters may assume that as the incident occurs overseas that we cannot investigate their claim, when in fact it is just as easy to investigate an overseas claim as it is in the UK.
As part of a national crackdown on travel insurance fraud, IFED are taking this battle to the doorstep of alleged travel insurance fraudsters. While his colleagues are down south, DS Marcus Allen and financial investigators Simon Stiles have headed north to investigate another suspected case.
She'd been on holiday, and at some stage whilst on holiday, she stated that her purse and handbag was stolen. And subsequently, she reported it to the police and made a claim in relation to the contents of the purse and handbag. These included a camera, some cash, some euros, credit cards, and a mobile phone.
Good morning. My name's Marcus Allen. I'm from the City of London Police. We've had a matter reported to us which regards you. Can we come in and talk to you, please? Who else is in the house? Oh, okay, all right, fine. We work for the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. We've had an allegation made against you by an insurance company regarding a claim for when you went on holiday. So we're here today to arrest you for that on suspicion of fraud by false representation. Is that clear?
Yeah.
You okay? Right, good.
Just shocked.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's been reported to us, we're going to investigate that, but the first stage is to speak to you. The items we're looking for are a telephone. Do you still have that?
Nope.
Okay, where is that?
That was actually stolen.
The woman claims she had some items stolen just days before going on holiday. The suspect goes and gets dressed in order to help DS Allen with his inquiries.
I'm just going to have a quick look in there, and also in your purse, but you can watch me do it.
DS Allen starts his search for any possible proof of a fraud.
Is this one of the cards you reported stolen? That's the replacement card. Where did you say the other stuff is?
The team have to be sure they don't miss any evidence, from paperwork to the items themselves.
I just need to confirm that this camera was not the one that you reported stolen.
The police have to carry out a systematic search of the house, searching every room.
Right, just so you know what we're going to do now, we're going to go to the police station, check it, discuss the officer, and then you'll be dealt with today.
She's been very cooperative, and now that she's been arrested for fraud by false representation, they're going to take her to the local police station to be interviewed. We came here with the intention to seek her and arrest her, and so a good day for IFED.
The woman later admitted the offence and was given a police caution. The suspect arrested earlier in the programme is still under police investigation. In total, 13 people were arrested during IFED's raids, targeting suspected fake travel insurance claims. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
That's the subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units.
Police, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company puts the brake on a personal injury claim from a car full of passengers.
They were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year.
A boat enthusiast gets into deep water with his claim.
The wardens of Lake Windermere had to actually rescue him on several occasions.
And the IFED team discover a large stash of cash.
It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something you usually come across in a normal house search.
London's iconic red buses have changed a lot since the early days of horse-drawn wagons. They're now fast, efficient and high-tech. And London is chock-a-block full of them.
In London, operating on behalf of TfL, there's over 7,600 buses, and there are 2.4 billion passenger journeys a year.
Abellio operates 600 of these buses, and out of a whopping 140 million passenger journeys, the vast majority run smoothly. But on the rare occasion there is an accident, Abellio investigates any insurance claims thoroughly, as they did with one received in July 2009.
The claim came off the back of our 350 service, which runs from Hayes Station up to Heathrow. In the summer, 11 o'clock at night, our vehicle was trying to park on the bus stand, and there was a VW Charan taxi cab that was just in front of the bus stand, and our bus clipped it as it was parking.
Despite only nudging the car, it wasn't long before Abellio were contacted by its occupants.
We received in claims from 5 individuals. These claimants were claiming for back and neck injuries of a whiplash-type nature, but they were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year. That was supposedly backed up by medical evidence. All in all, this mounted up to £27,000 worth of claim against us.
Hang on. That seems a lot of money for a minor incident. Alan's team began investigating the claim.
When the claim came in, we knew something was wrong.
As part of their investigations, Alan's team used state-of-the-art technology.
We've got kit on our buses that enables us to tell the G-forces of any incident.
The G-force was measured as extremely low, meaning there must have been very little contact between the bus and the taxi.
The slow impact nature of this incident, there wasn't going to be psychological trauma, there wasn't going to be back and neck injuries.
Fortunately, on Abellio's buses, there are up to 16 CCTV cameras covering both the inside and outside of each bus. Alan and his team scrutinised the footage from the date in question, only to discover something very surprising.
When we looked at the CCTV, we could see that only the driver was in the cab. In fact, we see the driver get out of the cab, lock it, and go and walk to our driver.
And that looks like a suspiciously empty car to me.
Clearly, the claimants weren't present at the time of the incident.
It became apparent to Alan that the insurance claim was simply a pack of lies.
As a result of this, we immediately contacted the police as part of Operation Catcher.
Operation Catcher is a department within the Metropolitan Police that hunt down organised insurance fraudsters.
If we weren't on top of this and we simply accepted it, first of all, it would snowball and get thoroughly out of hand. And if we were paying off claims like this, not only would fares go up, bus companies would go out of business, and in the end you wouldn't have a public transport system. So there is only one choice for the bus operators, and that's to take a very robust approach and work hand in glove with the police.
Alan and his team now had enough evidence for the claimants to be brought to book.
The individuals were taken to court and found guilty of fraud. 3 individuals received 9 months suspended sentence and 200 hours community service, as well as having to pay costs. The driver, who was at least there at the time, received a 12-month suspended sentence and 300 hours community service, as well as paying costs.
The dodgy claimants were banged to rights, and justice was served. But for Alan, it was a bittersweet victory.
While they were found guilty of fraud, which was satisfactory, I would hope that they would actually receive more robust sentences because they're premeditated. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It takes time to think about putting in such a claim. And they were trying to extort nearly £30,000 from the company.
But it's not just the shifty claimants that Alan has a problem with. It's those who represent them as well.
I think what would help it is if third-party solicitors actually looked at the credibility of claims that come to them. If you looked at this incident and the circumstances of a slow-speed collision to claim psychological trauma that would last for more than a year, to claim whiplash, back and neck injuries, just really wasn't credible.
This case was closed, but to Alan's frustration, other chancers continue to try it on with his bus company.
I don't think in any way bus companies are a soft target. Maybe some individuals out there still think that's the case. Given the technology we have, given the amount of effort we go to, and given the approach we take, which is very robust, and our working relationship with the police, anyone who still thinks that is very much mistaken.
Still to come. Police track down a stolen Mercedes in a case that drives the insurance company round the bend.
The vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
And Royal Mail encounter first-class scammers.
The total value of claims made was £25,000 and we paid out over £15,000.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. If you get caught, you're likely to get convicted, and then that is going to affect the rest of your life.
Today, IFED are cracking down on suspected travel insurance scammers. People who falsely claim for the loss or theft of luxury items, such as clothes, jewellery and electronic goods whilst away on holiday. In total, 70 officers are working with the City of London Police up and down the country. One team is led by DC Armand Taylor and head of IFED DCI Dave Wood.
It's now approaching 7 o'clock and we're about to enter the premises of one of our suspects, hopefully arrest him and search his premises looking for property that he's reported stolen.
It seems to be taking a long time for the suspect to answer the door.
Someone's got to be waking up.
Dave is growing increasingly impatient. Today's raid is the result of months of investigative work.
We're thinking it's occupied, but there's no one coming to the door.
It's not looking good. The support team may have to gain entry by force. That will soon wake up any occupants. But in the nick of time, the police spot signs of life through the letterbox.
Police, can you come to the door, please?
Morning. I'm from the City of London Police Insurance Fraud Team. I'm here today to speak to you regarding a claim that you've made.
Once inside, it doesn't take long to identify their rather shell-shocked target.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made. I've got to caution you, actually, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. If you don't want to mention when questioned, something too late to rely in court. Anything you do so may be given in evidence.
Placing the suspect under immediate arrest is a crucial step in police raid protocol.
You haven't been arrested before, have you?
It appears the suspect has been caught off guard and is visibly shaken.
You're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. All right?
Right, what you can do...
Dave Wood informs the suspect of what's going to happen.
We'll be searching top to bottom for those items you've said were stolen. If you can show us where those items are, it makes it a lot easier, and it also shows you're cooperating with us.
Did you want to help us out with the location of the items? Well, I've got a list. I've got a list in here.
The list is a breakdown of the luxury goods that the suspect claimed had been lost or stolen while on holiday. The suspect cooperates, and IFED commenced their search.
There's similar make and model that have been reported stolen as well, so we'll seize them.
Items can often be stashed in the most unlikely places, but when IFED are in charge, there's nowhere to hide.
We were knocking on the door for quite a while before he opened up, which makes me think, in my suspicious mind, that he may have been stashing stuff around the place so we can't find it when we come in. So whilst you might think, why am I looking in the bathroom cabinet, that's the reason why.
Coming up, IFED find a number of items of interest, including a large stash of cash.
So we'll seize that. Under the proceeds of crime we can seize it, and then we'll do some further inquiries back at the station.
For many, insurance provides peace of mind. From the thefts of cars and laptops to damage to personal valuables and your home. John Beadle has worked in the industry for 15 years, and in his time he's come across a few who have tried it on.
Sometimes I wonder if people think insurance companies are completely stupid.
Some of us have been there. Sitting in a restaurant or a cafe, you turn round and your bag's gone. Unfortunately for one of John's customers, an impromptu visit to a restaurant ended in disaster.
This gentleman had been shopping when he decided that he would pop into a branch of a well-known restaurant chain for his piri-piri chicken for lunch, and he left his laptop by the side of the table.
The claimer was clearly gutted by his stupidity.
Losing a laptop, of course, can be very upsetting in the sense that you've got a lot, potentially, of precious information on there, so he was clearly upset.
On receipt of the claim, the insurer set about making their usual inquiries, which sparked their suspicions.
It transpired that he hadn't reported this to the restaurant itself, and indeed hadn't reported it to the police either.
They investigated further, and it transpired all wasn't what it seemed.
When we looked at the CCTV footage at the restaurant, he'd never actually even been in the premises that day, let alone with or without his laptop.
The insurer confronted the claimant with their findings, and the claimant admitted that he had in fact made a bogus claim.
We reported him to IFED, and he's ended up with a criminal record, and he will also be entered on the insurance fraud register, which will cause him difficulties in obtaining insurance cover in the future.
But this is just one of the many claimers over the years that have tried to pull the wool over John's eyes. From exaggerated home contents insurance claims to organised insurance scams. One particular chancer thought his claim would be a drop in the ocean.
We do write a lot of insurance business. We're one of the biggest marine insurers in the UK, of course, and that ranges from oil tankers to pleasure craft. One of our customers' boats that he uses on Lake Windermere was put into storage in the winter and stayed in storage for some 5 months until it was taken out in April when he reported to us that the engine had been damaged during storage.
The claim was for water damage to an inboard motor and soft furnishings on a boat. John could understand his customer's misfortune.
This was a very unlucky policyholder who'd suffered this damage, and of course it would have cost us several £1,000s to repair the engine for him.
John and his team decided to drop anchor and process the claim as quickly as possible. But it soon became clear that this claim was not above board.
On making inquiries, we found that before the vessel was put into storage for the winter, the wardens of Lake Windermere had to actually rescue him on several occasions. On 4 occasions, they'd had to tow our policyholder's boat in because the engine had broken down. In fact, the last occasion was about 2 weeks before he took the policy out with us. On closer examine, the engine was found not to be damaged so much as suffering from wear and tear because of its age.
But this sailor really went overboard with his claim.
He also then alleged that he had actually had the engine repaired regularly, but when we interviewed the person who he said had carried out regular maintenance and repairs of the engine, he said he'd never actually done any work on it whatsoever.
For John, this claimer was simply an opportunist.
I think he knew that the engine was shot to pieces and was no good, and so thought he would take a policy out with us and wait a decent period and then make a claim, and that we wouldn't investigate it.
Unfortunately for our sailing enthusiast, his fake claim was heading for the rocks.
The outcome of this case is that we clearly didn't and aren't going to pay this claim, and we voided the policy, so this gentleman is no longer insured with us.
His claim had sunk without a trace. John and his team weren't going to be taken for a ride.
Absolutely a blatant lie, and a gentleman that thought that we would just pay up, I guess, without investigating this. People need to realise that insurance companies aren't a soft touch.
We all want to own beautiful things, and a luxury car is usually near the top of the list. So when our next claimant had her car stolen, she was understandably upset.
The original claim was for the theft of a Mercedes 180 motor vehicle.
Motor theft is a multi-million-pound business in the UK, so police take it very seriously. Luckily, the car was insured by Direct Line's sister company, Privilege. So the customer reported her vehicle stolen to the Met Police, who issued a crime report, which she then submitted with her claim.
The claim was then processed and it was subsequently paid.
So the road ahead was finally looking clearer for our customer. Her beloved car had been snatched, but the compensation meant she could park her distress, for now.
In March of the following year, 2013, the vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants of that vehicle were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
The culprits had been caught red-handed, cruising around in our claimant's beloved Mercedes. But the case was about to change gear.
As a result of the vehicle being stopped by the police, Privilege reviewed the existing claim and identified that at the time that the claimant made their claim, it was not in fact a stolen vehicle.
During questioning, police were surprised to find that the driver not only possessed a set of keys for the vehicle, but was also carrying authentic documentation, proving that they owned the car and that our claimant no longer did. But if they weren't dealing with a stolen car, what were they dealing with? Someone who didn't want to pay their congestion charge penalties.
In this case, the claimant, who lives in London, had accrued a number of unpaid congestion charges.
Each time she ignored a congestion charge, she was fined £130, and the amount owed racked up to around £4,000.
The vehicle was subsequently repossessed legally through the courts in lieu of monies owed for in respect to the congestion charges. Not content with that, the claimant reported her vehicle stolen the day it was repossessed.
Worse still, the real victims in this were the new owners of the car.
Unfortunately, the vehicle was then sold through an auction process in an effort to recoup monies.
The proud owners of the Mercedes 180 had just bought their new car at auction. Unbeknownst to them, their car had been reported stolen by its previous owner, our charge-dodging claimant.
Matters were then referred to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, where the claimant was then arrested and interviewed in respect of offences of fraud. They admitted their guilt and received a formal police caution in respect of that finding. They have since been ordered to pay monies back to Privilege.
It's hard to imagine what possessed our cavalier claimer to rack up so many fines. Perhaps her hobby is collecting penalties, or maybe she'd zoned out.
This is not an unusual type of fraudulent activity. In the current economic climate, claimants will claim for virtually anything.
This motorist clearly had a blind spot when it came to respecting the law of the roads. She deliberately deceived the police and the insurance company in a blatant attempt to benefit from a false insurance payout.
I think this is an example where insurance fraud isn't victimless. Here we have innocent members of the public driving their vehicle which they believe is theirs, when in fact the police have stopped them. So psychologically, this would have been quite distressful for those members of the public.
Royal Mail is a much-loved British institution. It's a reliable service that we benefit from every day. Their mission is to always deliver, even if the package is damaged.
We lose or damage very few items, so we're always willing to consider compensation claims when they come in. We make every effort to investigate them, and that's to say, to investigate them in terms of what may have gone wrong.
But in March 2012, one particular case sparked a large investigation when several claims from a number of different people cropped up in the Midlands area.
In this case, we'd had a number of claims. They were sending the packaging to pawnbrokers, the gold dealers, but the jewellery had gone missing.
The packages contained extremely valuable items of gold jewellery and large sums of cash. When the parcels arrived empty, it looked like they'd been opened and resealed.
Well, the total value of claims made was £25,000, and we paid out over £15,000.
Royal Mail began an internal investigation. Firstly, looking at their own postal staff to establish if the packets could have been opened while in transit. Tony's team investigated the logs of the deliveries.
We then started to look for similar names, similar addresses, and we discovered that we had a web of people, at least 4 of them, and a web of addresses, and that we had compensation claims for items going back and forth between people and between addresses.
This strongly suggested fraudulent activity. The plot thickened when Tony received a tip-off.
But we received a call from a pawnbrokers where somebody was trying to cash several cheques to the value of several £1,000s drawn against Royal Mail. The pawnbrokers themselves were suspicious because of the size of the cheque.
The pawnbroker turned the fraudster away. However, the dodgy scammers continued to claim for parcels allegedly meddled with. This time, Royal Mail refused to pay. Meanwhile, Tony's investigation team delved deeper and began to join up the dots.
The links were obvious. It was reasonably sophisticated in that some attempt was being made to hide through the use of aliases and a web of addresses.
Tony's team had uncovered the gang's plot. They were padding out empty parcels to try and frame innocent postal workers in a bid to get rich. The investigation led to search warrants being executed at 3 addresses, and 3 individuals were arrested.
They appear to have been operating for just under 2 years, and we became aware towards the end of that period. I think in this case, one of the gang members was a career criminal. The story that was told in court, that we probably believe, is that he was putting pressure onto the others to help him. So I think one person was benefiting, 4 people at least were involved, and 3 people actually were sentenced as a result of this.
The fraudsters appeared at Nottingham Crown Court for their roles in the fraud. Lee Wally received a 10-month suspended prison sentence, and Kevin Newton was sentenced to 12 months in prison. The other fraudster, Stacey Haining, was ordered to pay over £3,500 in compensation, as well as completing a 1-year community order. Tony had stamped out the scam, and the fraudsters were in a royal mess. And for any other customers contemplating making a false claim, Tony has these words of warning.
My very simple message to anyone considering this sort of fraud is don't do it. Don't do it because not only do Royal Mail investigate, but the police investigate, and most other companies now investigate, but computers make this sort of crime increasingly difficult to commit. Once you start to lay some tracks, once you start to do the same thing 2 or 3 times, we will spot you and we will catch you.
IFED have arrested a suspect in a nationwide crackdown on travel insurance fraud.
You're under suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made, alright? I can say you're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. Alright?
They are midway through a house search for items of interest.
From the bedroom so far, I found a couple of bank cards which I'm going to seize or take notes of because they may relate to the claim that's been paid out. Some travel insurance documents that we'll look at seizing, and a camera that we believe is subject to the claim.
No area is off limits to the police. With Dave's years of experience at police raids, he offers a word of advice.
You're in a bit of a pickle here. To make the best of it, is generally would be to cooperate and just tell the truth.
All of a sudden, DC Aman Taylor is called to the bedroom.
Found a quantity of cash in the bottom of the cupboard, so we'll seize that under the proceeds of crime, and then we'll look at do some further inquiries back at the station once we've got everything together and put down a plan of action and how we're going to deal with it. It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something that you usually come across in a normal house search. Not sort of cash you'd expect to find during a house search.
Large sums of money, we would always seize it because you don't know where it's come from, and it's then his responsibility to explain where it's come from. That is the law in relation to money laundering and cash seizures.
The suspect is led out to the unmarked police car. It's been another success for DCI Dave Wood.
We arrived today with several objectives, the main one being was to locate and arrest our suspect, which we have done. He's been arrested for insurance fraud, and we've seized several exhibits which are relevant to that inquiry. He's now going to come back to the police station, transport provided by us, and he'll be interviewed in relation to these offences. So I am totally happy that we have mission accomplished this morning.
It's also been a good day for the wider IFED team around the country. 13 people have been arrested in today's crackdown of alleged travel insurance fraud. Officers seized thousands of pounds in jewellery, clothing and electronic items. These cases remain under investigation. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a convicted drug dealer thinks a bump on the head will give him a bumper payout.
Mr. Foster claimed that he'd fallen from his top bunk during the night and that he'd been knocked unconscious, suffering a severe head injury.
Thames Valley Police continue to clamp down hard on suspected crash for cash gangs.
Hello, it's the police!
And after feeling under par, a golf professional tees himself up for a double bogey.
The insurance company grew suspicious because they received information that Mr. Turner had been working at a golf club.
Some criminals just don't know when to stop. And you'd think being locked up would be enough of a deterrent. But for some, time inside just seems like an excuse to steal from hard-working taxpayers. Too many prisoners now see bogus personal injury claims as a nice little earner.
And the kind of people who put in false claims while in prison are the kind of people who don't realise the implications of doing so, both cost and to their own freedom.
At Her Majesty's Prison Manchester, the litigation team can sometimes be processing as many as 120 claims at any one time. These claims can be all sorts of trips, slips and falls, but one of the most common is for injuries sustained from falling out of bed.
There are a number of prisoners claiming to have fallen from the top bunk at Manchester. It's quite a hot topic. The injuries vary from case to case. Some claim to have banged their elbows, some claim to have bruised the side, some have suffered head injuries, front, back, facial injuries.
22-year-old inmate Callum Foster was awaiting trial, but soon appeared to find himself the victim of an unfortunate accident whilst asleep in his cell.
Mr. Foster claimed that he'd fallen from his top bunk during the night and that he'd been knocked unconscious, suffering a severe head injury.
2 months later, while still inside, Foster was reading a newspaper in his cell. He spotted an injury claims solicitor's advert and suddenly saw an opportunity to write himself what he imagined would be a blank cheque. After contacting his new solicitors, a claim soon arrived at the prison.
Initially, it was the solicitor's letter that raised our suspicions. They'd claimed that he had fallen out of his bed at 9 o'clock that morning, when we knew, looking from the records, that he was due to attend a review for his behaviour at 10 a.m. that morning.
Alarm bells had started to ring for the prison's litigation team, and a thorough investigation of the incident was launched.
Once we started to investigate the matter more thoroughly, we actually discovered that Mr. Foster was involved in an altercation on the yard that afternoon. He'd become extremely abusive towards staff, verbally abusive and physically abusive, and he had to be restrained.
After any such restraint, prisoners are automatically referred to medical staff and thoroughly checked over.
After the incident, he was seen by a nurse who noted that he'd received a small raised bump to the front of his head.
Foster realised there was an opportunity to exploit his earlier injury and came up with a clever plan to claim for a fall in his cell. At least it would have been clever had Foster not forgotten that his bump on the head had already been noted in the medical records a few hours before.
The records showed that later that evening, Mr. Foster had in fact pressed his cell bell and raised the alarm that he'd fallen from his top bunk. Medical attention was sought for him and a medical officer attended his cell. It was noted that he did have a slight bump to the front of his head.
Foster's ridiculous lies were unravelling fast, and when interviewed by local police, he answered no comment to all questions. In a groundbreaking case, Foster became only the second ever inmate in the country to be charged with fraud offences committed from the inside. Once again, he was heading for the dock at Manchester Crown Court.
Mr. Foster never actually admitted to his attempt on fraud. It was taken to trial and he received 9 months on top of his original sentence.
In court, a jury found Foster guilty and the judge was damning in his verdict. He told Foster, "No one should be under any illusion about the lack of resources public services have. Any such drain is to be abhorred, particularly by someone who has had such an antisocial history as you have."
I don't think this was a well thought out claim at all. The fact that he was claiming for an injury that he'd already sustained earlier in the same day, and the record was there, he did receive medical treatment for that injury, which he knew of, makes it not a sophisticated attempt at all.
Foster was looking for a bumper payday, knowing that substantial compensation had already been paid to prisoners. But his plan backfired, and instead he was landed with an extra 9 months inside.
The best thing about this job is successfully defending against fraudulent claims, getting a brilliant outcome, saving the taxpayer the money. It was a really good feeling that we could get this guy prosecuted.
Still to come, the Asset Protection Unit play cat and mouse with an evasive customer whose borrowed car has crossed the point of no return.
If I think that there's a danger that vehicle might be stolen, then I will authorise a snatchback, which is 2 of my staff go in to physically go and get the car back.
And an insider trader on the fiddle gets an unexpected visit from the IFED team.
And it wasn't long before Mr. Clegg received the famous knock on the door from IFED, and his skullduggery was uncovered.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These crashes are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from 4th CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
Got a second person in here!
But it's not just costing the insurers thousands. These criminals are putting innocent lives at risk. People are getting seriously hurt.
Unsuspecting members of the public are driving along busy roads and are being involved in these accidents because they are targeted by such an organised group, and that's why we're involved in the investigation.
It's early morning at HQ. After months of hard work, today is the start of an operation designed to smash another suspected crash-for-cash gang believed to be working in the area.
We want to send out a really clear message from Thames Valley Police that these offences will be dealt with robustly, that offenders will be arrested, and at any opportunity we'll prosecute them.
Helping to take the fight to the suspected scammers is Detective Sergeant Tony Madison, who quickly brings the officers up to speed.
Please expect the unexpected. We don't know what exactly we're going to find. What I will say is that other than our objective, our main arrest, which is highlighted in the arrest packs, there could potentially be other offences disclosed.
The coppers begin to head out, ready to hit the suspected fraudsters right where it hurts. With 5 separate warrants served across multiple raids, the rapid entry team are called in to assist at every single address.
Police officers, open up!
Quebec Sierra 50 out the address.
That's our man, security, that's our man. You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud.
3 suspects have already been arrested and taken away for further questioning. Evidence has been seized at various premises during 4 multiple raids so far. With just 1 address left to target, the team are hopeful that another suspected fraudster is about to be brought to book by the police. Sergeant Alex Clough is leading the raiding party into action.
We're off to conduct a warrant and hopefully arrest for fraud offences, dangerous driving. The intelligence that we've got is that we're going to go and arrest a male. That's the only male that we expect to find at the address. The offences that have been committed, we're sort of looking for documents like insurance documents, passports, identification, mobile phones. The warrant's going to be conducted as a door knock, but if no one answers, obviously we have the powers to force entry.
Once again, the team are assisted by rapid entry officers wearing protective clothing. Their job is to gain entry to the building as quickly and safely as possible, ensuring that suspects have no time to dispose of incriminating evidence.
Hey, it's the police. It's all right to come in. We've got a warrant to search this property.
But not every door knock yields a result.
Hello, it's the police. Police upstairs! Hello, police! Is anyone here? Hello, it's the police. You right?
Officers check round the back just in case.
Who else is in the address? Who else in here?
After looking over the premises for further occupants, the officer runs a check to verify the identity of the male tenant.
We suspect that there is a person living at this address that has committed offences. No, not you. But we still need to search the property. We'll need to search the whole property in relation to the offences of fraud, conspiracy to destroy or damage property, and also dangerous driving.
A thorough search is carried out across the house. Detailed checks are made in bags, boxes, drawers and cupboards in every room, making sure that no mattress is left unturned in the hunt for evidence.
Getting letters like that.
suspect address just down the road.
Okay, so...
I'm thinking about suspects linked with these guys.
Yeah.
This address, has that got anything that could link them?
We've just found some sort of various letters regarding financial arrangements relating to either the landlord of this property or the younger male occupant, but at a different address. So it may be that there's a group of addresses in the area where people are moving around, so it could be relevant.
As the search for evidence continues, the boys in blue check further documentation to try and confirm the details of all the occupants at the premises.
We detained 3 persons, done some checks on them, and we are confident that they are not connected to the person that we were after originally, with some valuable intelligence, but unfortunately not the suspect that we were after.
This morning's search is over, but contacting the owner of the property may yield further clues.
That's done. We've got some details of the landlord which we're going to progress with to find out whether or not our suspect lived here and perhaps a fraudulent address to where they've gone to.
Whilst this team didn't get to arrest their man, the wider case remains under investigation, and the police's commitment to reduce crash for cash crime in the area continues. In times of financial hardship, as the bills start piling up, people begin to worry about keeping a roof over their heads. Thankfully, for a relatively low sum each month, income protection insurance is there to cover up to 70% of earnings should you fall ill. Especially useful if your job is more like a hobby, but relies on you being fit and well. 52-year-old professional Laurie Turner was one of the lucky few that got to ply his trade on the greens and fairways of Yorkshire, whilst helping local golfers improve their game. Unfortunately for Mr. Turner, a debilitating knee problem threatened to put paid to his ideal vocation and saw his golf career heading straight for the bunker.
The claim was that he was unable to work, which involved teaching golf and also playing golf on the pro circuit.
Luck was on his side. Turner had done the sensible thing and already had income protection insurance. Very soon after notifying insurers of his injury, he started to receive monthly compensation payments.
The insurance company grew suspicious because they received information that Mr. Turner had been working at a golf club and giving lessons to members of the public.
The insurance company called in a private investigator who promptly dusted down his clubs, picked up the phone and booked himself in for an actual lesson with Mr. Turner.
Despite the fact that Laurie Turner had a knee injury, you can see that he's able to stand, swing a golf club, and it shows him receiving money at the end of the lesson.
With the lesson ended and his golf swing vastly improved, the investigator passed the conclusive evidence directly to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department at the City of London Police.
It was found that Laurie Turner was playing golf on the Professional Golf Association Northern and Yorkshire tours and receiving money for entering and playing in tournaments when also claiming on his insurance policy.
With the weight of the evidence stacking up against him, Turner was well and truly in the rough.
IFED arrested Laurie Turner at a golf shop he was working at, and he was prosecuted and charged with fraud by false representation.
Pleading guilty at Leeds Magistrates Court, he was ordered to carry out 140 hours of unpaid work and to repay over £8,000 that he had fraudulently claimed.
This type of insurance policy, income protection, is really important for people if they should fall ill and be unable to work, if they can't pay their mortgage. But unfortunately, Laurie Turner abused this policy by continuing to work and play golf and give golf lessons whilst receiving money from the insurance company.
As any unlucky driver knows, being left without a car after an unfortunate smash can leave you stuck indoors with the kids or unable to get to work. Thanks to legislation for insurance policyholders, a complimentary hire car is a real silver lining.
The main business of Accident Exchange is to provide hire vehicles for people involved in non-fault accidents. So if you're involved in an accident it's not your fault, Accident Exchange can provide you with a like-for-like replacement car.
Unfortunately, what's great news for motorists can also be good news for fraudsters on the lookout for a free ride. Within Accident Exchange, the Asset Protection Unit, or APU, help keep a watchful eye on the fleet.
We have about 3,000 vehicles, mainly prestige vehicles, and APU's main role is protecting those assets.
Once the client's vehicle is repaired and sent back, they must return the replacement hire vehicle to the legal owners.
99% of clients and customers give the vehicle back and there's no problem. There's just the 1% where we need to take significant action.
When a customer fails to return the car and starts ignoring calls, Neil is placed on red alert. If they continue to drive, they will be breaking the law as the insurance is now invalid. There's an increased chance that the vehicle may go missing or be passed to a third party.
If I think that there's a danger that vehicle might be stolen, then I will authorise a snatchback, which is 2 of my staff go in to physically go and get the car back.
Snatchbacks are when the car's legal owners use a spare key to take the vehicle back directly from its location. Used as a last resort, this type of operation always carries an element of risk. It's 6 a.m. It's been a very early start for APU's Matt Sperrin and his colleague Erin Sims, who set off from HQ at 3 o'clock this morning. They're making their way to the family home of a client who hasn't returned a vehicle to Accident Exchange.
The hire company who've lent the vehicle out, they've been trying to communicate with these people for quite some time to get the vehicle back. Their period of hire has ended, but now they've got to the point where they can't communicate with the clients. They've been trying to call them, there's no answers, they won't reply to voicemails, emails, letters, texts and whatever else has been sent to them. So the only option that's been left to them to protect their asset is to recover the vehicle. They've given us the basic details of who these people are. We've done some background checks and it's just felt that the safest and easiest and best way to resolve the situation is to get the vehicle back in a covert manner. Hence the reason we've got the spare keys. We can use technology within the vehicle to see where it's parking overnight, to see what sort of times it starts up and moves in the morning. And should they be true to form, the vehicle should be parked up there now when we get there. Hopefully it won't be a gated property and we'll be able to just get in it and scoot away.
As well as the all-important spare key, Matt has some clever tracker technology at his disposal. Using a smartphone app, he pinpoints the vehicle's exact location.
It's only a very small, tight side street, so...
Matt doesn't know what to expect when he attempts to snatch the car back from the client's drive.
It's this right here, just behind this van.
With an eyeball on the vehicle, it's important they position themselves for a quick getaway.
Go in there, turn around, and you can just sit in the entrance here, facing out, ready to go. And you can see down there then as well. I can see the vehicle there. You'll be able to see me getting into it. There.
Matt's finally located the car, and snatchback is go, go, go.
So the vehicle's parked up on side street opposite us now. It seems fairly open, it's not gated. We may have to reverse up. I don't think we're going to get time to do a 3-point turn, so we're just going to get in there, get in as quick as we can, and get on the main road and get away.
Time is of the essence. Now he's in, the last thing he wants to do is stall it. Matt has to be careful not to wake the client who's sleeping like a baby. He has to be quick and discreet. Snatchback complete.
Successful recovery. It's always difficult when we're getting vehicles back from down little side roads, side streets. You know, you've got to manoeuvre something out. This is quite a big vehicle, so managed to get out there, no damage. This is probably, what, £30,000 worth of someone's hard-earned money. And if it was 30 grand in cash in a bag, you know, we'd all be jumping up and down trying to get it back. And it's the same principle for me, to be honest. You know, they might not care about it, it might not be their vehicle, but it is someone's vehicle. It's the livelihood of the business who own the vehicle, and it's in everybody's best interest to get it back unscathed.
One of the common hazards of the job is being pulled over by the boys in blue for suspected car theft. Once he's a safe distance from the location of the recovered vehicle, Matt contacts the police in case the clients report the vehicle as stolen.
It's just to let you know that we do now have possession of that vehicle. If somebody does ring up inquiring about it, if they could be just directed to ring the main office number, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Matt gives the car a once-over, noting the vehicle's condition and making a photographic record of the contents.
The car itself is in a complete state. There are sweet wrappers everywhere, drinks bottles, crisps. It obviously hasn't been cleaned inside or out. There is a lot of property in the boot, which tends to suggest two things. One, that they weren't bothered about the vehicle, it's not theirs, they don't want to treat it like it was their own, and that generally they didn't have any intention of handing the vehicle back.
Unfortunately for Accidents Exchange, the costs are still rising. Despite recovering their valuable asset, the car needs petrol to get to HQ, and they will still have to pay to return the car's contents to the clients.
I think they feel it's a victimless crime. They look upon hire companies or credit hire or whoever they've had the vehicle from, and they'll look at the business, especially if it's a large national company or international company, and they'll say, well, they've got thousands of cars, hundreds, thousands of cars. It doesn't matter to them. Whereas the truth of the matter is, it is valuable to someone. It is £30,000 worth of vehicle. It does make a business however many pounds a day while it's out on rent, and they can't do that whilst people like this are holding on to it.
The absent-minded customer will soon have their property returned, but their free ride at the insurer's expense is over.
It's really rewarding to get a vehicle back. It's got financial implications for the people that own the vehicle. We've helped save them a lot of money, hopefully. We've got back in a valuable asset for them. And at the end of the day, it's quite a nice feeling to know that we might have inconvenienced the client somewhat, which is actions they've all brought on themselves at the end of the day. So.
Insurance fraud comes in all shapes and sizes. It's committed by a whole variety of people, regardless of background or profession. From labourers to doctors, and from lawyers to footballers, it's always surprising to hear who's on the take. Even more shocking is when it happens from within the very area of business trying so hard to stamp it out. The insurance industry.
Mr. Clegg was employed by one of the main insurers as an insurance claims manager. So his day-to-day role would have been examining claims that come into the company and sorting those out, ones that should be paid out and ones that perhaps require a bit more scrutiny before they get paid.
Now firmly established as the head of the claims team, it didn't take long before Michael Clegg abused his position of trust. He was soon turning his daily toil in the office to his own financial advantage.
Mr. Clegg recruited 3 of his friends and got them to submit 3 separate fraudulent claims, each for medical disabilities and instances. He oversaw each one through the system and made sure that that claim was paid out back to his friend.
Fraudster Clegg cooked the books so that 3 separate claims were paid out over a 5-month period.
The whole scam depended on Mr. Clegg being in the position within the company that he was and him overseeing the checks and balances that would have kicked in and making sure the claims were paid out. This happened once, twice, 3 times. Total amount that was stolen from the company, £34,000, of which Mr. Clegg himself pocketed £14,000 and the remaining £20,000 was split between his 3 friends.
His employer soon noticed the irregular payments and got on the phone to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department at the City of London Police.
And it wasn't long before Mr. Clegg received the famous knock on the door from IFED and his skullduggery was uncovered.
Within weeks, IFED made in-depth inquiries and began to investigate the fraudulent claims.
The inquiry quickly uncovered the motive behind Mr. Clegg's criminality. Mr. Clegg clearly found himself in a vulnerable position in the fact that he had £10,000 worth of gambling debts, and rather work out a plan to pay them back as any normal person would, he thought differently and invented this scam, roping in 3 of his friends to ultimately defraud his own employers of £34,000.
As Clegg soon found out, fraud is never the easy solution to clearing a string of bad debts.
Unfortunately for Mr Clegg, this grand plan fell flat on its face and led to Mr Clegg being arrested along with his 3 friends.
Michael Clegg and his accomplices soon found themselves on trial at Manchester Crown Court. Clegg pleaded guilty to fraud and was given a 2-year suspended sentence. His 3 fraudulent friends were given community orders of over 100 hours each for their part in the scam.
IFED deal with all types of insurance frauds, big, small, from organised criminals to one-off opportunistic offenders. However, it is disappointing when we do occasionally come across what we call an internal fraud. There's someone from within the company that are supposed to be helping us prevent and detect insurance fraud are actually doing it themselves. Fortunately, it's quite rare, but when it does happen, IFED, along with the insurer, will take the necessary action.
Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
Subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company pulls out all the stops.
A blue Nissan Almera pulled out in front of it, and then the driver slammed on the brakes in front of the bus.
A claimer goes completely overboard with a personal injury claim.
The claim was a substantial figure in excess of £500,000 for his ongoing losses.
And IFED are on the trail of a suspected crash for cash criminal.
Well, they've got an intercom with a camera on the door, which isn't really fitting with the area or the premises, is it?
Being a bus driver can be a tricky business. There are just under 200,000 casualties a year on British roads. 1 in 40 of these involve a bus or coach. Buses provide an important service, so drivers are highly trained to be amongst the safest motorists in the world. But when accidents do happen, it's not always the bus's fault.
This incident involved our 301 service, which runs from Peckham to Waterloo. It was in the summer, 6 p.m. in the evening, and our bus was proceeding along the road when a blue Nissan Almera pulled out in front of it, and then the driver slammed on the brakes in front of the bus.
In a matter of weeks, the bus company received a claim from the Nissan driver for £3,500. Abellio didn't hesitate in investigating it.
The circumstances were quite peculiar. As a matter of course, we did everything that we usually do, contacting the call centre, filling out the incident report.
Luckily, each bus is fitted with the latest technology.
On average, across our fleet, we've probably got about 12 cameras, but it can go up to 15 cameras on some of our double decks, and the minimum is probably about 10 on a single deck. They cover all the angles, outside and inside. There's not anything that you won't be able to see when we've got an incident.
They watched the CCTV footage back, and what they saw rang alarm bells. The Nissan car pulled out in front of the bus and then started to travel slowly. The bus driver had to slow the bus down to increase the distance between the two vehicles. The Nissan in front then suddenly slammed on its brakes, and the bus went into the back of it. The
reality of the situation was obvious just purely from the CCTV. There was nothing in front of the vehicle to cause him to brake.
The Nissan driver's behaviour was also a little unusual.
The driver then acted very peculiarly. He got out of the car, wouldn't talk to our driver, and immediately was talking on his phone. All in all, it was very clear to us that there was something suspicious going on, and we instructed the police straight away.
DI David Hindmarsh from the Met Police came on board to help Abellio with their case. David heads up Operation Catcher, a police unit which identifies and prosecutes crash-for-cash offenders, with the unit handling up to 50 investigations and making over 300 arrests since 2010.
Abellio came to us because they were suspicious, having reviewed the CCTV that was on board the bus. They believed that the car in front had deliberately slammed on its brakes during an emergency stop, causing the bus to crash into the back. The bus had around about 30 passengers on board that day, some of which may have been standing, but even the simplest of braking of the bus could have caused them to fall over, injure themselves seriously.
The cops could clearly see what had happened and put two and two together.
Having reviewed the bus CCTV and having the experience of these type of incidents, we decided that this was a potentially induced collision. It had been deliberately induced so that the car in front of the Nissan Almera driver could defraud the insurance company, i.e. get some compensation.
Suspicious that this was an attempted crash-for-cash accident, the Nissan driver was called in for questioning.
He was interviewed under caution and on tape. The allegation was put to him that this was a deliberate act for the purposes of claiming off the insurance companies. He denied this. He simply said the bus had been driving too close to the back of his car and had actually collided with him.
The fraudster was convicted at Woolwich Crown Court of dangerous driving and fraud by misrepresentation. He was disqualified for 12 months and given 100 hours of community service.
This result was a good result for us. It's good that the jury recognised that this was in fact a cash for crash and believed the bus driver, because they are difficult to prosecute. There were 30 passengers on board that bus. Any one of those could have been seriously injured or even killed.
I'm happy that he's actually now got a criminal record and will think twice about doing this thing in future. A lot of thought goes into making the claim after the incident. People sometimes think they can get away with it, but given the equipment and given the investment that the bus companies have put in, it's highly unlikely that they will ever succeed.
Coming up, a claimer doubles his chances with his insurance claim.
The photographs that were supplied as proof of the damage that were caused looked remarkably similar.
And a claim for a piece of jewellery loses its glimmer.
Either he had lost two bracelets, or the bracelet that was lost on this occasion actually didn't exist.
Exaggerated insurance claims come in all shapes and sizes, from claimers adding on designer clothes to travel insurance, to items of furniture onto home contents insurance. But top of the list is exaggerated personal injury claims, especially those related to motor insurance. And they're on the rise.
It does appear that these types of claims where gross exaggeration in order to obtain financial gain is becoming more common, and insurers are finding more of them and investigating more of them on a year-by-year basis.
One insurer received a claim relating to a car accident in the summer of 2011.
The claimant alleged he'd sustained the injury as a result of the defendant's vehicle shunting into the rear of his. There was some concern that the symptoms presented and the manner in which he stated the incident occurred was exaggerated. He alleged it was forcible, but the defendant was actually disputing that, stating it was only a very minor incident that had occurred in a 20-mile-an-hour zone.
An accident can be traumatic, especially serious car accidents, with those injured suffering both physical and mental injuries.
The claimant was alleging that he was unable to stand or sit for any longer than 20 minutes without the onset of pain. He was also alleging he wasn't able to carry anything heavier than light shopping bags. And in addition, and most importantly, he was unable to work and had actually had to give up his job as a direct result of the injuries he suffered.
With a prognosis of only 50% recovery and the possibility of needing a full-time carer for the future, it wasn't looking good for the injured claimer.
The claimant's claim was a substantial figure which was reserved at in excess of £500,000 for his ongoing losses.
With the prospect of paying out such an enormous amount, the insurer called in their lawyers, BML.
Following receipt of the instructions, we immediately started to investigate the claim, questioning the extent of the symptoms that the claimant was suffering and also putting into strict proof that the losses were suffered as a direct result of the road traffic accident.
When the lawyers contacted the claimer's employer, they couldn't believe their ears.
His employers actually provided us with a statement to the effect that he was able to drive his van. He was able to actually lift and carry significant crates and containers which weighed approximately the same as a washing machine, and he was able to undertake all of this whilst he was reporting to the medical experts that he was unable to work.
The plot thickened when further clues were uncovered online.
We searched social media and obtained images which seemed to show that the claimant was able to undertake tasks such as carrying his child, and also his mobility seemed far greater than he was reporting to his medical experts.
The insurers had no doubt that the claimer had blown his personal injuries out of proportion.
To save incurring substantial litigation costs and the risks incurred around pursuing this claim further, we would make a significantly low offer to the claimant to settle his claim, highlighting we had concerns over his credibility and the fact that we didn't believe all of the symptoms presented to his medical experts were an accurate picture of his true day-to-day life.
Realising that he'd been caught out, the claimer was willing to negotiate his claim.
The case actually concluded at a very significantly low figure, approximately a few £1,000s, which was against a case reserve of over £500,000. So there was substantial savings made. He ultimately accepted our very low offer and walked away from the claim at that point in time.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. So really, if you want to go into insurance fraud, I would say don't do it.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
My team work tirelessly 24/7, so we know exactly what types of scams you're going to embark on, and we will come after you.
Today, IFED are cracking down on car insurance fraud. DS Marcus Allen and his team of officers are on the trail of a suspected crash-for-cash criminal. After months of research, the suspect is known to move around a lot, and so the team are hoping to catch him at one of 3 different addresses. But as he moves flat every few months, it could be a frustrating morning for the IFED team. They're en route to the first property.
We're heading off to arrest a male believed involved with others, taking out motor vehicle policies and then making claims for fictitious accidents where personal injuries have allegedly happened.
They're only a short distance from the address.
Turn left in 300 yards, then you will reach your destination.
They arrive at the first address and have parked around the corner so as not to tip the suspected criminal off. IFED often rely on the element of surprise, hoping to catch the offender on the hop. But they have to move swiftly so as not to alert the alleged fraudster. Their intel has brought them to a multiple occupancy property. These significantly increase IFED's work, as it means the team has to knock on every door within the house and check all the innocent residents to ensure their suspect isn't among them.
Good morning. I'm from the City of London Police. These officers are with me. We're here today to look for him. What's your name?
It looks as if IFED are too late and the suspect has moved on. But Marcus and the officers want to make certain.
OK, may we come in and just confirm who you are and who lives here? So like I said, we're from the City of London Police. We're all police officers. We're investigating an offence where this address has been named. Do you have any identification, please?
On entering the house, the officers attempt to verify the identities of those present, including anyone who seems completely innocent.
Have you got like a driving licence or anything? Through your name on?
Driving licence or passport?
We can see who you are and you are who you say you are. Thank you.
OK, yeah, fine.
From the officers' inquiries, the occupant's identification checks out.
I'm satisfied that the persons here aren't connected and that the male that we're looking for has actually moved out of the address. So we're going to finish off taking details, reassure them, let them know that there's no police involvement with them, and then move on to the next address and look for the suspect there.
IFED waste no time in getting to the next property, hoping to be hot on the heels of their suspect. Within minutes of Marcus arriving, the occupants open the door.
Good morning.
Morning. PC Bond.
We're from the City of London Police. We believe that this address has been used to facilitate some car insurance fraud. OK, we're looking for... Does he live here?
But once inside, it's the same scenario, which means more searches and ID checks, but no suspect.
Good morning. Sorry to disturb you. From the City of London Police. We're looking for... Is that you? OK, as we're here in the premises, have you got some identification, please, for you and the lady?
The officers check the identification of the people at the property, but it's another dead end.
None of our suspects live here. It's a multi-occupied address, so we're just verifying everyone here, their identities, and doing checks on them. If that's all satisfactory, we'll now move on to the third address.
With such a transient suspect, the IFED team have their work cut out trying to track him down. Marcus's day isn't exactly going as planned.
The day's operation is being renamed Wild Geese.
Whilst it's frustrating that not all raids go to plan, the IFED team are still able to gather information about the suspect's movements, and they can now eliminate the other locations from their search. Sadly for Marcus and the team, conducting a mini tour of the area is just part of the job. But they have another property to check out. Within minutes, Marcus and the team arrive at their final address.
Anything? Well, if it is, they're not going to answer the door, are they? I'll just have a look.
No one has answered the door, and they can't tell if anyone's in. But something about the property just doesn't seem right to the officers.
Well, they've got an intercom with a camera on their door, which isn't really fitting with the area or the premises, is it?
No.
The property appears unoccupied. However, somebody's gone to great lengths to make it very secure. There's a camera intercom on the door. The lock is quite a sizable, expensive lock. And at the back, there's foil lining on the windows. So we are quite keen to get inside and find out what's going on.
Time is running out, but entering by force is seen as a last resort. With the help of officers back at base, Marcus attempts to track down the house owner.
One of the officers has contacted the landlord, speaking to him now to see if he'll let us in to check there's no suspects in the flat.
The property owner is on their way to assist the officers. But just as the team are preparing to enter the residence, they get a call from a colleague.
The outcome is this premises, we found out that it was a brothel with prostitutes working here. Hence the security measures that they've taken. We've now confirmed with the landlady that it's empty, and we've spoken to the local police who've confirmed that they've taken action and that it's now empty and there's no criminality going on there.
Unfortunately, it's been an uneventful day for Marcus and his team, who return to the office empty-handed. They may not have found the suspected criminal today, but will continue with their investigation and won't rest until they bring this and any suspected crash for cash criminal to justice. Accidents happen all the time in the home, from spillages on carpets to accidents with a hot iron, which is why accidental damage is one of the most common reasons for making a claim on home contents insurance. With advances in science and forensics, insurers can determine the truth behind some of these claims. Dr. Andrew Moncrief works for one of the leading forensic science organisations in the country.
For any incident, if something falls over, bends, breaks, blows up or is damaged, it'll be damaged in a way that follows various physical laws. And those laws are often predictable, often easy to study. If we come across something which seems to suggest that those laws have not been followed, then it implies human intervention.
In his time, Andrew has helped investigators with many accidental claims on home insurance, from spills of nail varnish on sofas to bleach and glue on carpet. But one spillage crops up more often than others.
Paint spills are an interesting claim for us or an interesting type of claim for us to investigate, because when you drop a tin of paint, it will spray itself around the room and over the furniture in some sometimes quite unpredictable ways. When we're faced with a paint spill, either on site or via photographs, then once again we'll be looking at those patterns, which should follow fairly predictable physical laws, and we'll be looking to see whether or not the pattern is consistent with what the claimant is saying happened. There are quite a number of fairly clear indicators with paint spills that they've actually been done deliberately by a human hand rather than accidentally.
However, the use of Andrew's forensic skills by insurers for household accidents doesn't stop there.
With an incident such as a claim for a damaged computer or a damaged television, we'll look at things like stability. Is it possible for the thing to have fallen off from where it was positioned? We'll then look at the surface that it's landing on, the height it's falling, and we'll try to tie that in with perhaps with test results from other items to see what sort of damage we expect from the impact that's been described to us. We'll also, of course, look at the number of impacts, because most things, if they're falling accidentally, only do it once. And we'll look at it and we'll see whether the damage to the television is consistent with the manner in which it's supposed to have fallen.
And don't be fooled into thinking that a small claim won't be given the same attention by an insurer as a claim for thousands.
It's actually quite difficult to simulate an accident perfectly, and the more complicated the accident, the more difficult it becomes. If we dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the incident, then there will nearly always be something to indicate that the claim has been created deliberately. But it's interesting because the amount of money that an insurer is willing to spend is sometimes considerably more than the actual value of the claim. If they find that they really do want to make a point, then we're sometimes funded really rather well to carry on looking deeper and deeper into a particular incident.
Not only do people sometimes exaggerate their claims, but they also duplicate them. Insurer QBE received 2 claims related to a TV that were remarkably similar, with a faulty picture hook being at the centre of both claims.
In the claim that was presented, it was alleged that the picture hook from the product was faulty and that it had fallen from the wall and damaged a TV casing.
When the claimant submitted some photographs to support their claim, QBE thought everything seemed to be in order.
The claim was submitted for reimbursement of the cost of replacement of the television, and QBE settled that case for the sum of £500.
However, 12 months later, another claim landed on their desk.
In 2012, QBE received a further claim for a faulty product, which was a picture frame. The picture frame hook was said to have been faulty, and this fell onto some personal property, damaging a TV and a television unit as well.
Again, the claimer had photographs on hand to help support their claim.
The second incident that was presented to us showed pictures of the television again, but also some additional photographs that showed damage to the television cabinet and also the area of where the picture frame had fallen from.
Unluckily for the claimer, the insurer thought these photographs looked familiar.
we immediately noticed on both instances was that the photographs that were supplied as proof of the damage that were caused looked remarkably similar.
Let's just have another look. These are the photographs relating to the first claim of damage to the TV. And these are the photographs relating to the second claim. Yes, remarkably similar, I'd say.
Although we could tell visually that the pictures looked the same, it still wasn't, in our opinion, enough to prove that they exactly were.
The investigator had a few tricks up their sleeve and sent the photographs off for further examination.
We forensically examined those pictures and we looked at the metadata that sits behind them. The metadata being almost a footprint of the image taken at a point in time. The photographs that were similar, that we suspected, did in fact show the same date stamp as the original claim that QBE had received.
The claimer had been caught out, but the insurer wasn't happy just to give him a slap on the wrist.
We felt we had enough evidence there to the criminal standard of proof, and that decision was taken then to refer the matter to the police, more specifically to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, didn't hesitate in calling the claimer in for an interview, where he held his hands up.
He explained that the pictures that he had submitted in the second case were indeed from the first incident. That was a case that had been made by a previous partner of his for the faulty picture that had fallen.
The claimer had the old photographs still on his camera. Now he had a new girlfriend. He thought he would use these pictures to his advantage.
The claimant had indeed made his girlfriend phone QBE because he didn't feel he was able to portray himself well on the telephone and thus continue the claim that he'd made.
The first claim was indeed genuine, but as the claimant had admitted that the second claim was fraudulent, he was given a police caution.
He thought it was an easy way to make a claim. Unfortunately, we were able to quickly identify that the second case from that claimant was indeed a fraud.
If we lose a piece of jewellery, regardless of the value, it can be upsetting. Even more so if it's of sentimental value or a family heirloom, which is priceless. Whether it's your wedding ring or your grandfather's watch. So imagine what our next claimant felt when he lost a very special family memento.
In this case, our policyholder gentleman was out on the town with some of his friends when he lost a bracelet. Well, the bracelet was not only worth £3,000, but it was a family heirloom which had been passed down from generation to generation.
A claim was made for the insured value of £3,000 within a month of the policy being taken out.
We began to become suspicious because this very valuable item hadn't actually been reported as lost to the police, which you would normally expect it to have been.
The insurer discovered that the claimant had lied about his whereabouts that night.
The other thing we discovered was that the gentleman concerned was actually not out on the town on this night and was at home.
But it seemed that social media was to be the claimer's downfall.
We made some inquiries and in fact they were quite startling what we found out. So this bracelet had in fact been lost on a previous occasion at some specific premises and not as alleged on this night out. Either he had lost two bracelets or the bracelet that was lost on this occasion actually didn't exist.
It turned out that the bracelet had been lost a few months earlier in a gym. Now it was time for RSA to confront the claimant.
We challenged our policyholder and they asked to withdraw the claim.
But the insurer wasn't having any of it.
We were so incensed that this policy had actually clearly been taken out with a specific intention of making a claim that we reported the case to IFED, who took action against him.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, continued with the investigation. The claimant was then arrested and received a police caution.
He might have thought that this was worth the risk, but ultimately he's ended up with a criminal record, and he will of course also be on the insurance fraud register and will find it very difficult to get insurance cover in the future.
Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
That's the subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a shameless con artist tries to trip up the council.
The point where he was found was approximately half a mile from where the pothole was located.
The IFED team return to haunt a greedy ghost broker.
He's got all the equipment and the capabilities to commit the type of fraud that we're investigating. I think I'm going to need a bigger car.
And two conflicting accounts put an insurer on a collision course.
The driver of the other vehicle was claiming £15,000 for personal injury, £12,500 for ongoing care, and £770 for a coach that was damaged.
A walk in the park can be anything but if you forget to look where you're going. Slips, trips and falls account for over 50% of all accidents in the UK and cost the NHS a staggering £133 million a year. This is exactly the sort of unfortunate accident experienced by 27-year-old Mark Bowyer.
The claim presented by Mark Bowyer was, on the face of it, a straightforward tripping claim that we deal with day to day. He said that he'd fallen on a pothole whilst returning home from a party.
The pothole-related tumble proved a painful experience for Mr. Mark Bowyer, who sustained a serious fractured ankle. Backed up by his father Richard and friend James Jones, Bowyer wasted no time in putting in a claim against the London Borough of Havering for the injury and loss of earnings.
The claim, once it was submitted, was investigated by the local authority, and after making those inquiries, liability for the accident was admitted, and then efforts were made to obtain a medical report so that the claim could be valued.
By now, the claim stood at a whopping £100,000. Unfortunately for Mr. Bowyer, it was soon apparent that his account was no more truthful than Pinocchio's.
Once the medical report was obtained, it revealed that he had in fact been injured when he'd fallen from a wall, rather than having tripped on a pothole, as he was alleging. Unusually, Mr. Bowyer decided that he would continue with his claim. The arguments against these records was that there was confusion, there were language difficulties when they were prepared, and simply that there'd been mistakes. That was what he said.
Already smelling a rat, but hoping to find even more conclusive evidence, the investigators had one more trick up their sleeve against the fraudsters.
We then obtained the recording of the 999 call that was made, as it transpired, by Mr. Bowyer's friend, James Jones, on the evening of the accident.
All right, mate. Well, we're in, is it Arnold's Park? By the lake, and my mate's fell off the boat and broke his leg.
Right, and you're in the boating, mate?
Yeah, he's in the boat, mate.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it conscious?
Yeah, he's conscious. Yeah, he's in a lot of pain, though. Yeah, he's in a lot of pain, though.
Was this an accidental fall?
Yeah, it was an accident, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I hear that again? I thought he tripped in a pothole.
By the lake, and my mate's fell off the boat and broke his leg.
Right. Well, you've really put your foot in it there, mate. But not in a pothole.
There was no mistake. Mr. James Jones was quite clearly heard speaking to Mark Bowyer at the same time, asking him what had happened, and you could hear both James Jones and Mark Bowyer confirming I'd fallen from a wall.
How high is the wall?
About 3 foot.
About 3 foot, right.
Yeah.
Is he completely alert? Does he know where he is?
Yeah, you know where you are, don't you, Mark? Huh? You know where you are, don't you? Yeah, he's all right, yeah.
Yet it wasn't just the phone call that proved damning.
A very useful piece of evidence in this case turned out to be the evidence of the ambulance crew. They were able to confirm where they'd parked their ambulance and where they eventually found Mr. Bowyer, which was near a boating lake. And at this point, we could then establish that the point where he was found was approximately half a mile from where the pothole was located. And funny enough, right by where he was found, there was in fact a 3-foot wall. After a short period of negotiation with Mr. Bowyer's solicitors, the claim was discontinued and he was required to pay the council's costs of that action.
But that wasn't the end of the story. The council issued contempt of court proceedings against all 3 individuals, Mark Bowyer and his father Richard, as well as James Jones, who had backed up his story, all having lied in their earlier statements.
Shortly before the trial of the contempt case, Mark Bowyer and his friend James Jones conceded that they had committed a fraud and they laid themselves to the mercy of the court. Richard Bowyer, however, said that he had no knowledge of the fraud and it was nothing to do with him. Therefore, we had to have a trial on the issue of the contempt of Richard Bowyer alone. He was an unimpressive witness and the judge was critical of the way in which he gave his evidence, suggesting that he gave an impression that he was making it up as he was going along. And furthermore, the judge took the view, when giving judgment, that Richard Bowyer was in fact the driving force behind the fraud.
At the Royal Courts of Justice, the 3 men were sentenced for their greedy ploy to con Havering Council out of £100,000. Initial claimant Mark Bowyer received a 2-month prison sentence. His father Richard Bowyer received a 4-month prison sentence, and his friend James Jones was given 1 month behind bars.
I think a custodial sentence is justified in this kind of case because money can be spent better elsewhere. It can be spent on care for the elderly, education, all sorts of other activities, rather than paying off fraudulent claimants.
Still to come, a fridge fraudster finds himself frozen out.
We decided to look at Mr. Johnson's insurance history. When we did that, we were frankly amazed.
And the latest black box technology plays detective to help solve a mystery crash.
Significantly, at the time of him saying that the collision had occurred, the vehicle was 2 miles away in a totally different location.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
IFED combats all sorts of insurance fraud across the board, ranging from opportunistic jewellery thefts to crash for cash.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime.
Stay where you are!
One of the department's major headaches are bogus insurance sellers, known as ghost brokers. The average car insurance premium is over £400, but young motorists can expect to pay around 3 times this much, which makes them a lucrative target for fake car insurance sellers.
Ghost broking is where an individual will pose as a legitimate insurance broker. In fact, they are not. They will charge individuals a large amount of money and then give fraudulent details to an insurance company to obtain a premium which is far, far lower. They can make a lot of money for insurance policies that are in fact useless.
These fraudsters pose as insurance middlemen who can cut costs and target drivers under 25 with insurance policies a few £100 less than the genuine products. The insurance policy either doesn't exist or is based on a completely different set of details, making the policy cheaper to buy but totally invalid for the young driver. 3 years ago, First Central Insurance found themselves the victim of a prolific fraudster. And one man that knows the case all too well is Glenn Marr, Director of Fraud.
At the end of 2011, we noticed some unusual transactions. Insurance companies rate people on a number of factors. That's how we determine whether we insure somebody and how we set the premium for the risk. On these particular cases, there was a high number of years of no claim bonus, unusually high. When we factored it all together, all of it pointed to something being wrong.
A number of identical no-claim discount letters claiming to be from another insurer soon highlighted the fraud.
This particular ghost broker spent time and energy in producing forged documents. So that shows that they understood the insurance process quite well, were quite committed in the way they were committing the fraud. One of our mechanisms for detecting fraud is picking up forged documents. So by way of producing the documents, they actually open the door for us to investigate even further.
The fake documents were the final piece of the jigsaw. This ghost broker had given the game away, and the case was referred to IFED in 2012.
This particular policy here was incepted, here it says on the 24th of September of last year, and the person incepting that policy was paid an initial amount of £345.29. Now the policy holder in this case I've spoken to since this policy was incepted, and he has informed me that he has paid in excess of £1,000 to this particular suspect. So there we go, just on one policy, he's paid £345, yet he's received in excess of £1,000 in cash from the policy holder. So that just demonstrates exactly how much money he's making.
With the evidence stacked against him, Mark and the team head north to visit 33-year-old Atiq Khan. IFED believed the insurance scam was being run from here until 2012.
We're going to go there today now and arrest him. We're then going to hopefully conduct a search of the address. And what I'm expecting to find, or what I'm looking for, is computer equipment, mobile telephones, and any documentation. It's quite easy for these ghost brokers to actually set up. All they really need is a laptop, computer, any access to the internet, and one or two email addresses. We're aware of insurance policies that have been incepted through First Central Insurance. Yeah, well, there's 4 officers out, including myself today. 3 will go to the front door and hope to secure entry at the front door. However, 1 officer will go to the rear of the premises just in case our man decides to try and escape through the back door and over some garden fences. It's the next road up on the right. Oh, there's the address.
It's a dangerous job, as the police don't know how the unsuspecting fraudster will react.
Are you ready, guy?
After donning stab vests, they go knocking.
Window? CCTV.
Morning. Morning, please. Can you come down to the sim, please? Thank you.
Morning. Detective Sergeant Mark Fulton from the City of London Police. Are you Mr. Khan?
Yeah.
Atiq Khan? Yeah. Mind if I come in for a second, please, mate? Thank you.
IFED have their man, but the cameras remain outside.
Yeah, obviously we've gone in and we've arrested the suspect on suspicion of fraud offences, fraud by false representation. He's initially he was a little bit surprised. I've obviously explained to him in a little bit of detail what we are investigating, and he has basically indicated to me that he is aware of the offences, he has knowledge, and that's all he said at the moment. Obviously, I'm not going to interview him at this time. That will all be done on tape back at the police station.
With the search underway, it's not long before they strike gold. Khan's computer and a couple of scanners have been seized, which have the potential to knock up counterfeit documents and to create bogus policies.
But it just shows that he's got all the equipment and the capabilities to commit the type of fraud that we're investigating. Easily sort of scan documents and send on policies and documentation relating to insurance companies and motor insurance to his prospective customers. I think I'm going to need a bigger car.
With the haul from the house looking good, Mark and his team turn their attention to the car outside, hoping for further incriminating evidence.
Under here is a sort of compartment in the boot, which has got lots and lots of paperwork, correspondence. A letter there from Swinton Insurance.
large amounts of documents within that we've taken, all seized. I've got loads of documentation in the back here. I'm going to bag that up as one. Listen, I'll leave these three in the back seat for now. These are... Yeah, you got enough room? Get in your way.
As the evidence mounts up, the officers make careful notes on everything they find.
Ultimately, we found large amounts of insurance documentation. Lots of letters from various different insurance companies to various different individuals, names, addresses, all around motor trade policies, insurance, motor cover. There's always that possibility, and we do find it happens quite a lot, where once we get a foot in the door and we start searching and looking under things, that we find that it's a lot bigger than first thought. After you're going to jump in that silver, mate, all right?
With all the evidence gathered and a suspect arrested, it's been a good day for the IFED team.
All right, just jump in behind the passenger seat, please, and take. All right.
Two years later, and IFED now had a clear case against Mr. Khan, who soon found himself in the dock at the Old Bailey.
After some extensive inquiries and a long investigation, Mr. Khan was charged with a number of counts of fraud and forgery. The evidence against Mr. Khan was so damning that he had no alternative but to plead guilty at court. He was given a 12-month term of imprisonment. Historically, ghost broking has been looked upon by fraudsters as an easy way to make money. My message is to those individuals that IFED are investigating ghost brokers and will be looking to get the largest penalties at court for those offences.
With congestion on Britain's roads getting worse, there's more chance than ever of finding yourself in a jam. However boring sitting in slow traffic may be, you owe it to yourself to keep an eye on the car in front.
The claim was notified to us by our customer as a minor collision. He was driving home from the library one January morning. He told us that he'd been travelling very slowly. There was roadworks at the time with the traffic light control, so it was stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Heavy congestion going forwards, and that he just tapped into the vehicle in front of him.
This sounds like the sort of run-of-the-mill mishap that happens on our roads every day. So you can imagine their surprise when a claim arrived from the very motorist they bumped at very low speed.
The driver of the other vehicle, a lady aged 50, was claiming £15,000 for personal injury, £12,500 for ongoing care, and £770 for a coat that was damaged. We became suspicious because the circumstances described to us by our customer did not match up in any way, shape or form with what the claimant was alleging had happened.
Now faced with two conflicting accounts of the same incident, the insurers began the search for the truth.
The police report identified a witness who had seen the collision, and we subsequently spoke to him, and he was happy to give us a statement as to what he had seen at the time. He was a foreman on the roadworks where the accident occurred. He described the accident as happening at a very low speed. He said slower than a slow walk. He said the damage to both vehicles was extremely minor, and that the claimant's behaviour on the day was very strange. She made a complete song and dance of the incident, was clutching her neck, demanded that an ambulance be rung, and that she be put on a stretcher to leave the scene. Her behaviour at the scene was described as being claim-orientated, as if she was trying to set herself up for a substantial personal injury claim later.
The woman's story sounded pretty fishy. As she was still keen to pursue the claim, it will be up to the courts to decide.
The case was listed for a court hearing, but the claimant failed to show up on the day. The case was therefore dismissed by the judge, who awarded us costs in the sum of £9,000. These have now been fully recovered.
Whiplash claims are a fraudster's utopia. They can claim for thousands of pounds in personal injuries, but the problem is the symptoms are often subjective. Christian Worsfold is a physiotherapist who advises the government as they look to clamp down on this compensation culture.
My role at the Ministry of Justice advising the government relates to improving the medical evidence that's collected following a whiplash injury and also improving the training and accreditation of the medical experts who carry out the examinations following whiplash injury.
Accidents are down and cars are now safer. Yet road collision personal injury claims have increased 60% since 2006. The government believes over 500,000 whip cash claims are excessive, and last year passed a new law to tackle the issues.
I think the medical examination can be improved because, in my experience, I have a lot of patients come back following these medical examinations to tell me that they weren't in there very long, perhaps they didn't remove their clothing, they weren't examined in very much depth, and patients will sometimes comment that they're not surprised that it's actually easy to fake a whiplash injury.
Insurers estimate the claims currently add £90 to an average motor insurance policy. By improving diagnosis and making challenging cases easier, the government hopes the UK will lose its unenviable title of the whiplash capital of Europe and cut costs. When the washing machine blows up or the kids break the telly, buying a replacement is yet another cost you can do without. To protect against these minor home emergencies, over 75% of households in the UK now have contents insurance.
Mr. Johnson took out a policy with us in 2012, and within 2 days of taking out the policy with us, he made a claim for a fridge freezer, which he said was damaged when he moved house.
As the claim was made just 2 days after the policy was taken out, the insurers were immediately suspicious, and they decided to probe a little further.
We decided to just look at Mr. Johnson's insurance history, and when we did that, we were frankly amazed at the amount of previous claims that he had made, which he had failed to disclose to us when he took the policy out with us.
It turned out that Mr. Johnson hadn't just begun with a single fridge freezer.
We found out that Mr. Johnson had actually made claims with a variety of other insurers for 3 fridge freezers, 2 televisions, and other equipment, which are an obligation to declare to an insurer when you take out a policy, and he hadn't declared any of those to us.
They were clearly dealing with a serial claimer, so the case was escalated to IFED. Mr. Johnson had been frozen out.
Whilst this was a relatively small claim, the fact that he had failed to disclose so many previous claims and the level of non-disclosure, we decided to report Mr. Johnson's case to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Mr. Johnson was arrested and soon appeared at the City of London Magistrates Court. He was found guilty and ordered to complete 40 hours community service and pay the £510 in court costs.
I think the lesson here for Mr. Johnson and anybody else who might be tempted to act like him is that insurers do share information in order to detect fraud. There are databases which insurers can search, and these include now the new Insurance Fraud Register, where those people who are proven fraudsters will be filed to the Insurance Fraud Register, and that will be available for all insurers to look up in the future.
With a record 29 million cars now on Britain's roads, that's a huge amount of motor insurance needed and a lot of potential accidents around every corner.
The main business of Accident Exchange is to provide hire vehicles for people involved in non-fault accidents. So if you're involved in an accident, it's not your fault. Accident Exchange can provide you with a like-for-like replacement car. We have about 3,000 vehicles, probably about £50 million worth of cars. With having a fleet of over 3,000 vehicles, it's inevitable that some of our vehicles are involved in accidents.
Unfortunately for Neil and his team, some of these accidents aren't always what they seem.
What we found out is because some clients use a hire car, which is covered on corporate insurance, then maybe they think they won't be investigated. They are investigated.
Incredibly, Neil's cars are fitted with the equivalent of an aeroplane's black box recorder. And these telematics devices help investigators determine what happened to a car.
Telematics is new technology that's fitted to some vehicles, not every vehicle, that will give us an immense amount of data. Most telematics devices now can tell us the location of the vehicle, the speed, the direction of travel, how it's been driven. It's one piece of a jigsaw in relation to an accident investigation.
Martin Bramwell is Managing Director of a telematics company working alongside APU and is the go-to tech guy who can explain the science behind the data.
The black box in this vehicle, or telematics unit if you like, is collecting data all of the time. Approximately every 1 minute we will collect the location and direction of travel of the vehicle, but it will also collect driving behaviours that are considered abnormal as soon as they occur. Fast accelerations greater than something around 0 to 60 in 10 seconds are recorded as a harsh acceleration event. We can also detect harsh swerving. So for instance, going around roundabouts or corners in too hard a manner will also register as a bad driving behaviour.
The computer system at HQ has been receiving communications from the car's black box device. Now back at the office, Martin analyses the data.
This is the start of the journey, clearly marked. Each one of these blue dots indicates the location and the date and time together with its direction of travel. Occasionally you will see these harsh braking event markers, which in this case have occurred just as the vehicle has been approaching some junctions.
It's exactly this kind of electronic information that proved worth its weight in gold to the accident investigations team.
Whenever there's a claim, what we will do is investigate it to the best of our ability, using all the tools we have available to us. There was a claim that came to my attention where a client had said that whilst on hire, he'd had a collision in the vehicle. Probably a low-speed collision, nothing significant that was going to cause a lot of damage to the vehicle. In a side road, so no CCTV opportunities, no independent witnesses, just a quiet road on a residential estate. And there were 3 personal injury claims in the other vehicle. The value of this claim was around about £20,000, a lot of money.
With a lack of supporting evidence and no footage of the incident, it was hard to tell whether either party was telling the truth. Luckily for APU, technology became the expert witness.
We looked at the telematics device and significantly at the time of him saying that the collision had occurred, the vehicle was 2 miles away in a totally different location. With this collision, we could say that it never actually occurred. From that, the personal injury claims were withdrawn.
It was now becoming increasingly obvious that both the claimant and the driver weren't being honest.
There were significant similarities between the client's case and the third party's case, which tended to suggest for me, with hindsight, that they'd perhaps collaborated in relation to making this claim up with a view to trying to get a personal injury claim forward that wasn't going to be challenged because it's a big hire company, no one's going to investigate it, and they were wrong.